When it comes to arpeggios, most piano players are focused on two things: getting the notes and speeding them up. And this leads to choppy and uneven sounding arpeggios. When I was in college, this is exactly how I approached arpeggios, and I had no idea that there were 3 simple steps that I could follow in order to 10x the arpeggios and make them sound musical and flowing, all in a lot less time. Hey piano people, I'm Ashley. Welcome to Ashley on Music Studio, where you learn how to practice smarter, not harder. Let's dive in. Okay, the first essential step to 10xing your arpeggios is choosing the proper fingering and sticking with it. Think of fingering as the foundation. If you don't use the right fingers from the start, you will likely end up with very slow, choppy playing that holds you back. Consistent fingering is crucial, especially when you're aiming for accuracy and flow. Now, a lot of people have been requesting that I use Clair de Lune as an example by Debussy, so that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to look at measures 29 and 30 of this piece. It's a really tricky spot that most people struggle with. When you are considering fingering, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. You always want to take into account what comes before and after the section that you are deciding on fingering. You always want to take into account the final tempo, even though at this stage when you're choosing the fingering, you're likely not playing it at the final tempo. And you also want to choose the lesser of many evils. This is because there's often more than one fingering that will work for a section of music, but all of the choices will have pros and cons. And so you will choose the one that feels like the lesser of the evils to you. Now here at measure 29, it would seem like it would make sense for you to use standard arpeggio fingering, which would have us doing something like crossing our 4th finger over, right? So 5, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 4. That's how arpeggios are fingered in the books a lot, is like 4 and 1 crossing over or 3 and 1 crossing over. And you can see in the example, I wrote that fingering in: 4 crossing over, 2, 1, 2, 1. But a couple of things come to mind here. First of all, if I take into account what comes before and after, if I'm just looking at this measure, let's say that I'm trying to write in the fingering for the middle section, which is up here where I'm doing the 2, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2. Technically, yes, this works, but the transition from what comes directly before that, from the thumb to the 2, is really awkward. And if I take into account the final speed, I don't know if it's going to be possible for me to make that transition with fluidity and with accuracy every single time. The other thing to think about with this example is that you're spanning several octaves, right? All of these arpeggios are coming from very low, and they're crossing, I cross over 2 octaves. So I start on this D flat, I cross this one, and I even cross this one. And that's a very large span. And so if I do this fingering, I just feel like it's going to be really impossible for me to do that as fast as is required and as smooth as it is required, which is obviously the ultimate goal. So instead, we're going to do this fingering that keeps your hands stretched out and has fewer crossovers. Okay, so let's take a look. So we're doing 5, 2, 1, and instead of crossing 4 over, we're going to cross 5 over, because that allows my hand to stretch out and I can actually reach all the way up to almost where I need to be, right? And so I'm in only 1, 2 with the crossover hand positions. For 2+ octaves, I only have to go to 2 hand positions with 1 tiny crossover, versus the other fingering that had all sorts of crossovers, all sorts of thumbs on black keys, just things that were really, really, really awkward. Now, when you are on this step and you're trying to choose the fingering, this is a nuanced topic, and that's why it's a topic that's kind of hard. And if you're struggling with fingering, that's okay. I actually have a full video dedicated to choosing the right fingering, and there's a link to it in the description. Check it out if you want a deeper dive on fingering choice before you start working on the other steps. You can finish this video, then go watch that fingering video so that you'll be really set up to do step 1 with success. This is also something that you get tailored help with inside Casual to Confident Piano Player program from me and another C2C certified teacher. Enrollment is going to be opening in January 2025, so I'll link the page in the description and you can check it out. Step 2 is to chunk the notes in your mind's eye and on the page. And this step is all about how you are visualizing and thinking about the notes. In other words, how you're processing the information. Instead of thinking of every single individual note of an arpeggio as an individual note, you want to start to think about how these notes fit together to form chords. By doing this, you're going to recognize the arpeggios much faster, which makes learning them easier, but you'll also be able to play them much faster, which makes that road to confident musicality a little bit shorter. You free up your brain space when you can play them faster and learn them faster to focus on things like articulation and technique and expression and musicality. I'm going to show you how to do this in Clair de Lune, but if you're liking this video, and if you're still watching, I can tell that you're really committed to making progress in a smarter, not harder kind of way. So give the video a thumbs up, comment below, and let me know what's resonating, and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss any of the helpful videos that I release on a regular basis. Hit the bell and you'll get notified so you know exactly when they come out. So if we take the same measures of Clair de Lune and we look at those left-hand arpeggio patterns, it's easy to get lost in the individual notes, right? We can see there's a lot of notes in this left-hand pattern, but if you start to chunk the notes together, you can see that it's actually the same notes repeated over and over again in different octaves in each measure. So the first measure is made up of D flat, A, and then we have a D flat again, F, A flat again, D flat again, F, A flat again. And if you take away all of the repetitions of the same notes, what you're left with in measure 29 is D flat, F, and A flat. And that is a D flat major chord. And actually that entire measure, all of measure 29, is just playing the notes of a D flat major chord, which is only 3 notes. We can do the same thing at measure 30, where we can look, it's an E flat, B flat, E flat again, G. And if we look at that entire measure, we're only doing E flat, G, and B flat, which is an E flat major chord, and it's only 3 notes. Now my brain and my hand can start to chunk these measures together, and these measures become so much simpler than if we were trying to think about every single individual note. Now if these methods are resonating with you and you're serious about taking your practice to the next level, Piano Practice Lab will give you the methods to make everything that we're covering in today's video second nature. You're going to learn to create a practice routine that accelerates your trajectory to confident musical expression, and you learn about the practice methods that get you there. Pause the video, follow the link in the description, and reserve your free seat for Piano Practice Lab, which is coming up in January, and then come right back and click play so that you can learn step 3. Step 3 is to utilize proper technique. Arpeggios are not just about your fingers, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see piano players make. You don't want to let the fingers do all of the work. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this, but a couple of things that you want to keep in mind is that you want to have your fingers on the edge of the keys, not back here, intermixed with the black keys towards the wood of the piano. They want to be on the edge of the keys. You're also going to think about leading with your elbow instead of each individual finger. We're also going to minimize any up-down motion. In the Clair de Lune example, let's take the crossover that's happening in measure 29 between the D flat and the F. If we leave it up to the fingers, it's going to feel impossible. So look, I have 5, 2, 1, and then I'm jumping to 5. And if we think about a pinky crossing over the entire hand and coming all the way up here, it sounds impossible, right? But when I lead with my elbow like this, and I allow my elbow to lead my hand up and down the keys, what happens is all of a sudden, the fingers are just following the elbow. So it's not that my pinky all by itself needs to cross over this D flat and make it all the way to the F on its own. And if I were to do the motion in my pinky, that would be likely almost impossible. But when I'm leading with my elbow, watch what happens. I'm gonna exaggerate the motion. My hand is already set up to come here, right? Because my elbow is already on the way over. And so all I need to do is reposition my pinky. And it's this little tiny movement, but you can see I'm bringing my elbow into my side body. And all of a sudden that jump becomes much more possible with proper technique. Now don't forget to reserve your free seat in Piano Practice Lab, where we take all of the techniques that we worked on today and take them to the next level. You want to make sure to grab your free seat while they are still available. And I have another video that's all about taking your chords, in other words, your arpeggios in broken form, and making them sound musical. And everything that I cover in this video is also going to work for the arpeggios, just like the techniques that we just talked about. I'm going to link that video right here on the end screen, where you can also grab your seat for Piano Practice Lab. Happy practicing.